Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Betty Boo. Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the show. We are Corba Crew, and this is the Genius But Slow podcast. I think we have discussed at length why it's called Genius But Slow, so you understand now that I am absolutely brilliant, but just a bit slow. Right, so last time, maybe I have to talk a bit louder during the first part of this because I am still on the highway, but I thought, you know what, it's pretty calm, it's sort of calm. I can do this whilst talking. So I thought, why not just start talking about the topic that I actually teased a little tiny bit in the previous podcast that you hopefully listened to. Because otherwise, maybe just go back, or if you like this one more, you can't really decide that before listening. But anyway, we just start. Why am I saying things that don't really matter? That actually makes me think of another story that we're not going to start just yet. Jesus, what kind of chaos? First 2 minutes, maybe 3, I don't know. Anyway, let's, so what I said last time was that in many ways, I'm sorry, truck, could you just go away? Thank you. In many ways, greeting someone while you just walk past them is just like playing rock, paper, scissors, in my opinion, right? Because you basically have 3 options to do, and one option trumps the other every time. So what can you do, right? In the rock, paper, scissors, you got the rock, you got the paper, you got the scissors. Now, in greeting someone, you have nodding. You just say nothing. Like men know how this works. It's a common stereotype that is something that men do. Like they nod upwards when they know the person, and they nod downwards when they don't know the person. If you don't know that that's a thing that is legitimately, ask anyone. It's a thing, right? You nod upwards when you know someone. It's like, hey, how you doing? And downwards when it's like, good morning, sir. So that is a bit of an unspoken rule in the nodding department, right? Now, what else can you do? You could say good day, good morning, good evening, that sort of stuff, right? I usually, and that is a minefield in itself, by the way. Just I'm putting that in one category, but it shouldn't actually be in one category because it's already a minefield in itself, isn't it? It's so annoying because sometimes you would say good morning, and other people would be like, "Oh, good morning. Oh, it's already noon for me. Are you this late?" And I'm like, dude, it's 10 a.m. Of course, it's still morning. There's no argument to be made that 10 a.m. is not morning. Okay, yes, that belongs to the pre-noon. That is morning. There's no argument there. But I've had arguments because people always are like, oh yeah, I've started my day at 6 a.m. so 10 a.m. is not morning for me, dude. You don't live in freaking China. Your time zone is the same as me. Anyway, that aside, right? So I usually go for the neutral one, which is good day, and it's usually day. I even say good day at night, or usually just for jokes I say good morning at night, and then I just reply to them, well, it's morning somewhere. Or if I want to be romantic, I just say like, oh, it's always morning when I see you. And I say it in a romantic way, but actually it's a terrible thing to say to someone because it's always morning when I see you. Well, yeah, I get a headache and I feel hungover and nauseous when I see you. And that's actually what I mean, but just don't tell them is what I would say. Anyway, good day, right? That is the second option you have when you see someone in the street. Now, the third option, which is the most informal option, is literally saying hi or hey, right? That is an option you have as well. Now, consider these 3, right? In my socially anxious, overthinking mind, these 3 are very different from each other, right? It goes from really, so like good day would be the most formal one, and then you got nodding which is like, oh yeah, we don't really want to talk, let's not talk because I don't know you, or I know you and I don't really want to talk, so hey, you nod upwards, right? And then you got the saying, oh wait, saying nothing is actually an option as well. Saying nothing at all. Oh yeah, you know what, saying nothing is kind of nodding, right? So saying nothing or not nodding, that is sort of the same thing. But imagine, okay, imagine I'm walking on the street, there's someone coming towards me. I'm walking towards my desk, for example, at work, so we're colleagues. And this person says, hey to me. But at the same time, because, well, you usually feel it coming, right? You see someone coming and you don't really reply to them. You both kind of say hey or good day at the same time. So they walk towards me and they say, hi. Hi, Matthias. And I reply back, good day. Then he started informal and I said in a formal way. So that clashes, right? That is not the same weight to the greeting. And imagine them saying good day and I ignore them. I say nothing at all. Then basically I ignore their entire greeting. Right? So that is a problem as well. And the worst thing you could do is someone, although it could go both ways. So someone saying hi to you or hey to you, and you actually go like, you actually ignore them, right? Ignoring them is the furthest distance, and saying hi, hey is the most familiar, is the most casual greeting. So them two against each other, I would say silence wins, because it's the other person that is being over friendly and it's their fault now. But if you say good day, it's, you know, you feel where I'm going with this, right? You understand where I'm actually going with this. There's these three ways to greet someone, and it is just a minefield. It's maybe legit it's just me, because I overthink way too much, but it's just something that I've been thinking about recently. Because recently, like, every time I walk to my desk, it's quite a long walk. So every time I have to kind of, I see a lot of people, and I see a lot of people that I don't know. So in the meantime, with some of them, I have started to bond, and we've gone over to the hey stage, where the first time around it would be good day or just ignore each other, and now we've seen each other so much that we both kind of say hey. So that is an equal sort of growth in personality. You want to say the same thing, right? You want both of the people to say the same thing. Because otherwise, you say hey to them like, oh, hey, I can be friendly to you because I like you, or I am okay with you being here. While the other person just nods, and then you feel like a douche because you just... You know, you just opened your heart to them and they basically ignored you. So they just crushed your heart right there. And that is why the most neutral one, good day, is the one that I will most of the time, I will use that one, because I keep myself kind of closed off and open enough for them to say hey, right? I'm not stabbing anyone in the heart that they give me, but I'm also not giving my heart out to be stabbed at, right? But the most ideal outcome would be both saying hey. But it's both like giving your heart to each other. I'm exaggerating with this, I know, but still, that is something on my mind every single time that I see someone in the street. I see them like 100 meters away from me, and I immediately start thinking, oh, am I going to say hey? Am I going to say hi? Am I going to say good day? Like, what is he going to say? Like, I don't know. So immediately I'm thinking of all of that. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, it's not that fun being out on the streets. Because imagine just seeing a row of all kinds of people, and you have to decide in a split second who you say hey and who you say good day and who you just not to, right? Because that is another thing about me. I don't like repeating myself too often, right? So if I were to greet multiple people, I would kind of in my brain, I would have to say something else to each and every person, right? That is just how it works. You can't just say hi to every single person, then you're a hi slut, you know? Honestly, as I've been thinking about this for a couple of days now. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's been on my mind. And now sort of is the first time that I mention it out loud. And now that I'm hearing myself, I'm thinking, dude, what the heck are you talking about? Because you're literally talking about saying hey to someone and making that into some sort of competition between you and a total stranger that doesn't even know that the competition exists, right? They don't even know the competition exists. So why am I pretending that, oh, I won this encounter because I said hey and they said nothing? I won. I'm better at life. No, it's not how it works, because they're not even playing. They don't know they're playing. Yeah, I am a winner. So every once in a while, you have to be daring, right? You have to be daring and say hi to someone. Every once in a while, you just do that. And there's nothing, if they nod to you, then you can feel superior over them because you won, right? If they say nothing, you won. I do realize, now that I just said that, earlier when I was thinking about it, earlier when I said it, it was the other way around, wasn't it? I did say that if you say nothing and the other person says, hey, it's their fault because they're being too familiar with you. See, it's complicated, okay? Greeting people in the street is a complicated matter, and I'm not even talking about handshakes yet. You gotta understand, this is literally just walking past someone, right? It's something you learn when you're 3. 3? 2? I don't know much about children. When do they learn to walk again? I'm probably about 2 years old, right? Fun fact, actually. I learned to walk in America, in the States. I learned to walk in the airport of Chicago. That is where I took my first couple of steps. Since then, I've been trying to sit down in a chair as much as I can. Probably because of that little bit of American in me. Anyway, I'm not here to insult the Americans or the British. But that is just, anyway, handshakes, right? Handshakes, am I right? Now, so the other thing is handshakes, right? And I've heard other people talk about this a lot. So that is why I wasn't really going to touch on it. I was more focused on greeting people, nodding, and saying good day. Just letting a woman pass across, just across the street. While she's looking at me weird because I'm talking to myself. That is, yeah, a bit bizarre, but don't worry about it. Anyway, so can I just, yeah. What was I saying? Handshakes, yeah. So there was someone on the internet, I think it was Jaden Animations, a really talented YouTuber that used to make really cool animation videos. I don't really watch her anymore, but I think she's moved on to other sorts of content that I just like less. But she was talking about handshakes, and she was saying like, oh, why do people have to handshake? Just, it's annoying because like my hands feel clammy, and I could relate to that because my like whenever I'm sitting down or something, I'm usually holding my own hands or just doing something, yeah, right? I just got my hands clasped together. So whenever someone comes up to me and comes out for a handshake, you're just there like, oh no, my hands are clammy. No. So that is annoying. Handshakes are off the table, like those are bad. So what are some other options, right? Well, you can go one way and go like, oh, just give him a hug. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was in a student fraternity for a while, right? And that was right before COVID. And right before COVID, like, we would always hug each other and just give each other a kiss on the cheek when we greeted each other. That was just a thing. There was just that little subculture in the student fraternity, right? You would always, whenever you entered the pub or entered the room where other people of the club were, you would go to, well, there was a hierarchy, right? So you would have to go to a certain people first, greet them, and then greet everyone else from the fraternity. And it would always be with a hug or a kiss on the cheek. But of course, we're not going to do that with strangers. That is, I mean, even more off the table than handshakes were. So, what else you got, right? If you want to go the other way of less contact, you kind of have the idea of giving each other a high five. You could do that. A high five would work. But again, what if you miss, man? What if you miss your high five? Imagine the horror of missing a high five with someone you don't entirely know, right? You know them on the level of a handshake, and we're looking for alternatives for a handshake. That is what we're looking for. That is what we're doing. A high five. Yeah, what if you miss? You just hit your pinky on the palm of their hands or the other way around. Like, you don't want to do that. Or maybe your hands are a bit clammy and they're still going to feel it through a high five. Even if it's like really short, even if it's just a clap, like it's... my days. It's just, yeah, your hands are still clammy, right? So... I'm not entirely a fan of that either, because it requires a level of accuracy that I just don't really have. I have very bad hand-eye coordination, so it's, yeah, I'm not a big fan of the high five, of the good old high five. So the next option, and this is the option that Jaden Animation came with as well, finger guns. Is there any better way to actually say hi to someone? Forget the nodding, forget to saying good day or forget saying hi, hey. You don't need to do any of that. Just finger guns people. Like, hey, how you doing, Johnny? Like, it's friendly, it's open. You show that you are a fun, playful person. Someone that is just nice, right? You just show them everything. So, finger guns are just superior to anything and everything that I just mentioned, right? Imagine the rock, paper, scissor metaphor with Joey's option, Joey from Friends. Joey would come into the rock, paper, scissor and just have a fire and it would win over everything. Although by the end of the episode, someone comes along with a water balloon, but that doesn't matter now. That would just ruin my analogy. So fire, yeah, right? It wins of everything, and that is what finger guns is. Finger guns is the fire of rock, paper, scissors. I'm telling you, it's just so far superior over any other option. I can't even describe it. You know this. I mean, I'm saying the words, but everyone knows this. This is just objectively a good idea. The world should just start using finger guns. Or if you're close, give each other a hug, because it feels nice. You know, I'm not against hugs, but I am against the idea of touching someone that I don't really know. But other than that, although it does melt the ice immediately, if you greet someone with hugs, I wish I was that kind of person that could do it, but I'm just not, right? I'm just not the kind of person that could actually go up to everyone and give them a hug. But if someone comes up to me and instantly goes for a hug, even if the hug goes kind of wrong, right? My arm ends up in the wrong place, I don't know. Even if the hug is kind of goofy or fails, you have a laugh together. You laugh about it together, and it's not your fault because you were surprised by a hug. It was a surprise attack. You didn't know a hug was coming. Only the other person knew a hug was coming. You couldn't mentally prepare for that kind of activity out of nowhere. you can prepare for it. So it's not your fault if it ends up a little bit goofy. Come on, madam. If you want to cross the street, please do it now. Thank you. Yeah, sometimes you will hear a bit of side commentary about the road that I am currently on, because people do a lot of weird things, and that makes it a little bit more interesting. Right. Anyway, so finger guns are superior, but I am a fan of hugs. I'm a fan of hugging people. No. Let me rephrase that. I'm a fan of people that hug. So like hugging people. No, I'm not a fan of hugging people myself, but I'm a fan of people that have the balls, okay, have the courage to actually hug someone on first meeting them. It just, if that happens to me, I'm instantly like, this is a nice person. Usually, yeah. Usually. Let's just say usually I am a fan of that. It could be that I just don't like your face and I don't want that face that close to me that quickly. But you know what, it's alright. It's alright. I'm willing to endure that kind of face in pursuit of the royal hug. Anyway, so that's a bit greeting people. That are my thoughts on greeting people. Okay, like imagine someone actually speaking for. Let me check. Right, let me check. Imagine someone speaking for 20 minutes about nothing. That is basically what happened here. Because there's a lot of thought that goes into it, and I gotta admit, it might just be a thing in my brain where I'm just really interested in the intricacies of cultural differences and all that. What smells so weird here? Is it me? I don't know. Anyway, I'm really curious into cultural sort of stuff and the subtle differences that cultures might have to endure. Right. It's very interesting to me, and that is why I like going to sort of different countries. But I'm not gonna lie, like I like traveling and meeting new people and meeting a new culture, but I am more interested. I'm not really interested in going to Asia, for example. I'm not that interested in going to America either, although culturally it would be pretty interesting, I think. But I kind of look for that sort of cultural differences in a very subtle way. The subtle differences interest me more than the bigger differences with, for example, countries in Asia, Japan or China. They have very sort of culturally different thoughts and different ideas on how everything works. But that is such a big thing, right? It's so much to unpack. There's so much where a certain cultural difference started. Those roots are hidden so far underneath layers, underneath generations of people, that it's very interesting. And you could dig for days, but you would really have to become an expert in the Japanese culture specifically. You can't really compare that culture very well with, I would say, a Western culture. I would say a Belgian culture, to be specific. You can't really compare that because it's so vastly different. But that's what makes it interesting as well. I've read a lot about Japanese culture, and it really interests me. But I have noticed that the subtle differences between Belgium and the Netherlands are so much more interesting to me. I love it, right? I grew up against the border with the Netherlands, and all those differences were just so noticeable. I think the entire greeting people situation that I just described would be a completely different conversation if it were to come from a Dutch guy, from someone from the Netherlands, because they're just a very different people. And I think the best way I can describe it is the England and America have these subtle differences as well. It's not always that subtle, right? But it's a bit of the same way that Belgium and the Netherlands are different. Because usually you would say, oh, the Americans, they're very loud people, they're very outspoken, they're very direct in their communication, while the English people are very, very held back. They kind of... Although, by the way, just take this with a grain of salt. I don't live in either country. I just speak to people that live in those countries, and it interests me, okay? Like, just take this with a grain of salt. I haven't written a paper on the entire subject, but it's just casual interests of mine, okay? But I would imagine the Brits are very held back, and they don't really speak their mind instantly. They kind of have to dance around the subject a little bit before they nail it down to what it's actually about. While the Americans and the Dutchies are a lot more direct. What are you doing? There. They're a lot more direct. For example, if you weren't to dance around the subject, or just if you were to go straight to the point in Belgium, people would think you're rude, because you're just literally just instantly saying to someone like, hey, you're doing this wrong, right? Instead of like, hey, when you do this, maybe, right? Maybe this is how I do it, right? Maybe you should try to do it this other way. Like your way is okay, but maybe, right? It's how I have been doing it for years, and I think that perhaps this way, the way that I do it, would be better for the company. Like, you have to actually talk about a subject like that. Okay, like, of course I'm exaggerating a bit, right? I'm of course exaggerating, but that is a bit how we speak, and that is how we do business. In the Netherlands, if you were to do that, someone would interrupt you and say like, hey dude, if you're not gonna speak your mind, I'm going home. I'm done with this conversation. You're boring me, basically. They would say that in your face. Kinda. Of course, again, I'm exaggerating. Calm down. So that is a bit what happens there. And I think that difference you could recognize in the difference between America and the Netherlands as well. I think they sort of treat that kind of stuff the same way. For example, back in 2016, I joined Corba.world. If you don't know, that used to be a Minecraft server that was pretty popular, but these days it doesn't really, exist anymore. I don't think you could say that it still exists. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So back then, I joined that server, and there was this person from the Netherlands that was there. And of course, she liked talking to me because I was Dutch as well. Well, I'm not Dutch, I'm Belgian, but I speak Dutch as well. So, of course, we spoke to each other a lot. And I understood her because I grew up with people from the Netherlands all around me. So I understood how she communicated, and I could take it. I could understand, and I could kind of deal with it. But I noticed that everyone else was having issues with her. Of course, she was more direct than the average Dutchie. So that is something she was having trouble with. But I noticed that was kind of the problem in the Netherlands in the first place, how direct they are. They just say to someone like, hey, I don't like this. You're doing this, I don't like this. They will say that, and a lot of people got easily offended by her, saying like, oh, you're so rude, like you just tell people in their face that you don't like them. And it's like, well, yeah, but you don't want me to, like, in her defense, right, she would say, yeah, you don't want me to hide my feelings, do you? You don't want me to talk to everyone else about how I hate you and not to your face. Like, why wouldn't I say it to your face? But it is something just not done, and we all say, I've been guilty of this as well, We all kind of say how we would prefer if people would just speak their minds, because I can't read minds, all that sort of stuff. But it's just not true. It's just a cultural thing that is important in a way to actually have. You have to, in many, many cultures, you have to dance around the subject a little bit at least, because it just doesn't work like that. You can't always speak your mind. It's just not true. And people that say they don't gossip, or they would never talk about someone behind their backs, I'm sorry, maybe I'm pessimistic, but I just don't believe you. I'm open about it. Maybe if I have a big issue with you, right, you'll probably know about it. If I hate you, you'll know, but there's only like 2 people on the planet I would hate. If I just dislike you, I kind of stop caring about you, so I just don't talk to you, and you will notice that I don't talk to you, and if you got questions about it, you can ask, but I think that is a rather obvious way of saying, like, hey, I don't like you, I don't talk to you, it's fine. Any other case, I'm usually okay with people, and if I like someone, I usually do tell them quite directly that I like them. Now, where was I going with this? I've actually completely lost my train of thought. But yeah, the Netherlands, way more, I would say, even a bit aggressive with their language. They're way more direct. Direct is the only real way you can describe it. And I do think in America, it's sort of the same way. Because, for example, right, I met this American dude. I met like this American group while on holiday in England. And let me tell you the entire story. Actually, I told this story like legit last night on stream. I don't know if I should tell stories again while not on stream, but I'll just do it. If you heard it before, just skip to the next segment, I guess. But this will be the last segment. Anyway, I was on holiday in England, and I was kind of alone. I was not doing much. And this one guy from Denmark started speaking to me. He cycled all the way from Denmark to England, to London, and he was just staying in the hostel before he would return to Denmark in a couple of days. So I was talking to him, we had a couple of drinks, and I had a lovely night to just talk about random things, right? You meet a stranger, you just tell your entire life story, and it's just funny, right? Because you don't know them, and you know you're never going to see them again. So the next day, I go looking for him. I think like, let's see if he's in the bar downstairs. So I go to the bar downstairs, I go see if he's there, and he is. He's talking to some other guy. So I start talking to him like, hey, how you doing? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm with these people now. So this guy's from Denmark, and these 3 people are from America. So I'm like, okay, sure, new people to talk to. I'm nervous as hell, like the sweat is starting to come, but fine, let's start talking. And I hadn't really managed to get myself into the conversation yet when he said like, oh hey, I have to go and meet my uncle, I'll be back later tonight, but I'm going now. So he leaves me, or he's going out to dinner with his uncle. Right, that was it. And I was standing there with those Americans and this Danish guy, and they were all talking. I was just like, so my only liaison, my only link to this group just left. Should I leave, or should I just put everything on the line and see what gives, right? So I thought, you know what, I'm alone in this country. Why not just put everything on the line? If I die, right? Anyway, let's not go there. Let's not open that door. Let's just keep that closed. Yeah, okay. So I started talking to them, and I end up having an amazing time. I recommend, right? Because we even started talking about politics here or there, and at first I thought they were gonna be really screaming at me like, oh my god, this and that, like how dare people believe in this, and I'm just sitting there like, oh jeez. But they were actually really nice and really, well, I think the kids would say based. They were really based. They were really nice to talk to. They said like, hey, yeah, these are our beliefs, but the way that Americans are portrayed on the internet and all these crazies are shown, yeah, that's not how the vast majority is. The vast majority can actually see points on both sides. It's not everyone is just yelling at, oh, this president is bad or that president is bad. Not everyone is doing that. Actually, I'm gonna interrupt this story for a second. I am standing behind. Hold on. I am actually standing behind the mother of a friend of mine. Like I'm not standing. My car, like I'm driving my car behind the mother of a friend of mine, and the funny thing is, you can actually see people behind you, but you can't see people in front of you. So that is a bit awkward. Okay. Anyway, she drove away. Let's just continue the story of the Americans. So, the story of the Americans. Yeah, really fun people to talk to. Really based, as the kids would say. Had a lovely time with them as well. We actually spent the day together, and then at night, we went out to dinner, and afterwards, we just met up at the bar downstairs, had a couple of drinks, we just hit the town, just went into London and just had a good old blast in London just at night. And then afterwards we came back to the hostel, had a party downstairs as well in the hostel. It was great, and just with total strangers, by the way. I mean, I got to know them throughout the night, but total strangers, had a lovely time. I loved it. Let's do it again. We still talk to each other, by the way, and we are talking about doing it again at some point. So that is going to be great. Oh, shoot. Yeah. Fuck. Yeah, hold on. I need to... There's this car just... Someone decided to park on the road. Okay, anyway, so that was swearing in between. No, what was I talking about? Yeah, we still talk to each other to this day every once in a while, and we will meet up again. But they're from America, so that's a bit expensive, of course. Now, we had a lovely time, and then, right, that was the thing. Then in the morning, we woke up kind of late, and immediately I got a text like, hey, Matthias, we're getting breakfast. Do you want to come with us? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll be there in a sec. And they already left without me. Of course, freaking Americans. But they left without me, and they went to the breakfast place. I followed them. I looked at the map. I went the wrong way like 20 times. I couldn't find this place for the life of me. Finally found it. And again, Americans are a lot louder than Belgians or Brits are. So we were sitting at this really small sort of breakfast place, and whenever a joke was told or something, or whenever this one guy, this sort of really buff army dude that is now really into weightlifting as well, I noticed, whenever he would laugh, he would literally just laugh fully out loud, smacking the table like ha 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 ha, and the whole building would just be looking at us like, what's happening there? Like, he would smack the table, the dishes would ring, and people would just look like, oh my god, what's happening? Is someone having a heart attack? But it was just him laughing. So every time he would be like, oh no, oh sorry, I'm being too loud. He would realize, but I didn't really blame him, because he would of course realize, and he was trying to be conscious of it, but it's just a culturally different thing, right? I'm sure that wherever he grew up, America's really big, so they have really a lot of subcultures as well. Wherever you grew up in America, I'm sure that it was quite normal to live out loud and to kind of yell in a restaurant. It's abnormal for me. So for me, it's the Belgians are a lot like try to be invisible, right? We want to be invisible. We don't want to be noticed by other people. So seeing that was a really nice breakfast experience. It was also the first time that I had an actual proper English breakfast, and that was absolutely amazing. I loved it. That was great. So I fully admit, I have been outspoken against Americans at times, but I have to admit, Gracie, John, I believe, and Brandon have changed my opinion about Americans forever. Guys, this has been Genius but Slow. Thank you for watching. And as always, rock, paper, scissors the hell out of greeting people and greeting Americans especially. Bye-bye. And if you didn't hear that because that was kind of soft, bye-bye!